Welcome to Tuesday on the AM show. It's going to be another wonderful opportunity to dig into matters of national interest and beyond. When I say and beyond, of course, we're all concerned about what is happening in Burkina Faso. But let's focus on Ghana for now. In the course of our news review today, you know how we do it. We'll be joined by another powerful personality joining us to discuss the topical issues in the papers and beyond. But for our big stories, let's start with Parliament, which resumes today. What exactly can we expect? One thing for sure, the e-levy, and members of Parliament are going to discuss it. We're also throwing the spotlight on Ghana's tax to GDP ratio. How much of our total revenue do we get from taxes? We'll also look at the components of taxes on goods and services, focusing more on additional components since 2013. But when it comes to the e-levy, so many dynamics. The majority leader says it's already been passed, the appropriations bill and all of that. And we also have the chairperson of the CPP, Nana Akosua from Poma, who says, well, an e-levy, it's the way to go. Why is she saying that? The telcos are already charging that 1%. But 1.75% she feels is too hefty. How do we deal with the situation? We'll be getting her bites, her thoughts on this matter as we discourse with industry players and finance people. We'll also bring you an update on the Apiate explosion, and we'll be telling you more about the latest developments on the back of donations, on the back of the Ghana Psychiatric Association and the help they're going to offer. A pot of issues we're going to be bringing you on that. Also expect us to talk about the latest corruption perception index. Now, over the last few years, Ghana has not made any positive strides. In fact, not just in the last 5 years. If you look at the last 10 years, we've not made much strides. We go forward one bit, we come backwards maybe 2 bits. So we're going to be digesting the latest from 2021, where our score basically remained the same. Are we winning the battle against corruption? That's the big question. All of that on the AM show this morning. You don't want to miss a beat. We'll be right back with the news. Do stay.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapita CBD. Now, first story, the third session of the 8th Parliament will begin later today. The House rose on a very acrimonious note as a result of the passage of the controversial e-levy. There are promises to compromise before the House resumes to, among other things, ensure smooth passage of the e-levy. But with just a few hours to go, there seems to be no sign of unity or compromise on the outstanding issues. The minority has reiterated its resolve to vehemently oppose the bill. They've been speaking at a town hall in Kumasi, from where Nana Ojima reports.
Speaking at the NDC town hall meeting in Kumasi, Elizabeth Ofosua-Jare says the levy will kill businesses in the country.
NDC MPs, yebuya hopa. Yankoju obisika. Nim say adwuma na eda yanim no eso chen sika ankrenkre bia betimi agi ahye ne bag. Ghana yie die Ghana kankro e na hiaye.
We members of Parliament on the minority side are for the interest of the country. We can't be influenced by money, but we should bear in mind that a simple majority is needed for passage of the bill. So, if all the 138 members of majority are present on the day, the bill can be approved.
NDC for pese baswa yensa ho eni fin ewo e-levy.
But even if that should happen, we the NDC MPs have washed our hands off the e-levy and its consequences. It is a tax that will not do any good for the country. If gold, cocoa and other natural resources couldn't save us, will this do?
Cocoa anyonkwa e-levy bejonkwa. Enti die aban pese o kire se e-levy no na beboa no.
The minority is proposing government consider retrieving the 12 billion cedis that was lost to corruption in 2020 as stated by the Auditor General's report to make up for the lost revenue. She further proposed a cut of government expenditures.
Auditor General's report, the year ending 2020, page 2, Auditor General Akase, Sikabro 12 billion cedis na yayira into Ketasishe, any enyoma oya emfata.
Over 12 billion cedis, according to the Auditor General, has been lost to corruption and irregularities. We will tell the government to go after the money, which is more than the projected revenue from the e-levy. Government will not get the projected amount since many will refuse to use the service when the bill is passed. Admitting government will get the projected amount cannot service corruption alone.
And you 6.9 million only to finance corruption? The answer is no.
Member of Parliament Finance Committee, John Abujina, says the economy is on its way to a total shutdown if urgent measures are not put in place. He describes the economy as one on life support.
The size of your GDP does not pay your debt. It does not service your debt. It's a revenues. If you look at a country like Japan, their debt to GDP is about 100%. But because the interest rate is just about 1% or 0.5%, they are able to pay. And also they are able to generate revenue in order to pay. So this 80% we are seeing is just a tip of the iceberg. Go and look at our total revenue, or more importantly, our tax revenue. Then you will get to know that this country is indeed on the path to a total shutdown and a total collapse. It's very serious. And anybody who is sincere and looks at our figures will tell you that this economy is just on life support. And sooner than later, if nothing is done to correct all these measures, the Ghanaian economy would face imminent and total collapse.
Mr. John Jinapo says increases in some taxes and levies have failed to rescue what he calls a failing economy.
These are taxes that are way up to 2021 country say you as tax yina bibia ebeko yi. Country say Ghana for mon sacrifice maye. Mon tighten mobiles maye because the economy was on a turnaround. Sana Minister of Finance Ghanaians complained. Ghana for be complaining, but you can say nyagwe. Some say you draw you know. Na say you beto ya 2021 you benum. 2021 abe endewi. Afa 11 is free for you. I think that's the question we ought to be asking the finance minister and his team. So despite all these sacrifices, why do you want to implement the e-levy?
For Joy News, Nanaya Ojima, Kumasi.
The Member of Parliament for Ejusu has mapped out strategies to attain Sustainable Development Goal 6 in the area by the end of the year. Dr. John Kuma says 30 places of convenience with borehole facilities are being constructed through private companies for improved sanitation and clean water for the communities. Enhanced education has also been prioritized. Nanaya Ojima again.
Both men and women at Buankra in the open defecation. Though ashamed of the act, they are compelled to
because going to someone bush, even when you are there, there is almost women and men are always gathered going to toilet. So men see women private parts. It's not easy at all. So
Besianse, one of the communities in the municipality, has a similar story. Some residents show me where many use as a place of convenience. To deal with the situation, a private sector-led initiative is being rolled out in the municipality. John Ampontiakuma is Member of Parliament.
I did a research of the community and found out that number one problem was sanitation, lack of quality public toilets. So I partnered with private companies to build these public toilets for the people. And so far, all the 30 we are building is 100% private funded. And so far, out of the 9 that have been commissioned as of today, the 21 left have all been built, plastered, and roofed. So I believe by close of the year, we should be able to complete the rest of the 30 toilet facilities. And it's going to be privately managed, of course, with the involvement of the chiefs and the unit committee and the assembly, so that we can maintain the standards of quality.
Meanwhile, contractors are committed to complete the facilities on schedule. For Joy News, Nana Yaojima, Kumasi.
Basic schools in the Achima Kwanoma district of the Ashanti region have begun reading and leadership skills training for career development. The educational intervention would facilitate improved literacy rates within the district. The US-Ghana Alumni Association is organizing the mentorship and literacy programs for basic students. There's more in this report.
The Achima-Kwanoma district houses over 8,000 basic school students with approximately 40% literacy rate at its public basic schools. Authorities bemoan, despite the recent improved performance of students at the BECE, they lack effective public speaking skills. District Chief Executive at Achima-Kwanoma, Prince Kakari, intimated consultations are ongoing to kickstart the community library and reading club projects by the end of February.
Our district is gradually becoming the education hub of the region. For 5 years running, our district has come up top of the BECE examinations countrywide. What we are trying to do now at the basic level is to improve literacy and numeracy. We are going to encourage what we call reading clubs and literacy clubs. And we want to have those clubs in each and every school in the district. So we are in talks with the Education Directorate to come out with a roadmap.
The US-Ghana Alumni Association has instituted a leadership and literacy program in line with SDG 4 to provide quality education and mentorship to students within the district. President of the association, Dr. Hilda Mantebia-Boy, reveals the program will be extended to the northern and other parts of the country.
We are hosting 100 children today in this program that is in the Ashanti region. We'll have others in the northern region, in the upper west region, and some of the other regions in the country. Similar concept: leadership, literacy, and the career mentoring for the school children.
District Director of Education Doris Ofori indicated the training would complement the district office's efforts in augmenting literacy level in the district.
Because of the learning program that USAID have been helping Ghana Education Service. So we have a program for the children where they learn the sounds, how to pronounce well. So it has helped them to read and write. Any word that they can see, sight word or any word they see, they can pronounce it well. When we came around, they were asking them questions, they are pronouncing words, they are reading books, and I think they will have interest in reading.
From Kumasi for Joy News, Emmanuel Bryant-Kwekwe reporting.
Volta Regional Minister Dr. Archibald Lecha has charged municipal and district assemblies, especially those in rural areas, to introduce housing schemes to tackle staff accommodation. According to him, a public-private partnership would help lessen the challenge of lack of education for staff, a development which is affecting the work output of staff. Speaking at a separate staff durbar during a tour of the region, he opined that the provision of accommodation for the staff would propel work delivery and make the assemblies perform better.
The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Lecha and his entourage started the day's tour in the whole municipality, where he inspected the progress of work on 3 projects ongoing in the whole central market and the Ameganshi Bridge, which are stalled. The whole MCE, Divine Borson, was disappointed with the progress of work on the market shops project.
Myself, my engineering department, and the management team are considering to blacklist some of these contractors who will not hand over their jobs on time. Because this is money that is available for contract, and whenever you raise certificate, we release your money unto you. Yet you are still behind time.
Dr. Lecha proceeded to the Adaklu district, where he inspected a market store project at the Adaklu Animal Market, a newly built Adaklu District Police Command, a chief's compound attached with staff quarters at Adaklu Amfoe, and a court complex under construction. He later commissioned a 3-unit classroom block for the Akwete Basic School and a maternity block for the Kpetwe Health Center in the Agotime district. Speaking at separate staff debates, Dr. Lecha implored civil servants to give off their best to enhance the performance of their respective assemblies. He also advocated for the implementation of housing schemes to help lessen the challenge of staff accommodation.
A priority that we should be looking at is how to make sure that when you are transferred to Adaklu, you have a decent accommodation to live in, and so that at least you'll be happy. Your children may be in school in Adaklu or in work, doesn't matter. But we want the staff to remain here and work here and feel happy here. So that you can own farms. We'll give you land to farm. So that weekends you will farm and add to the economy of Adaklu. If assembly cannot build it, assembly will have to get a private, so that we do a PPP arrangement, so that the staff stay there and then we deduct rent and pay to the private person. But assembly can also start it, some housing scheme, because it's like schools around home where all teachers live in home. So the teachers don't live in the community, and the pupils cannot see their teachers as role models.
Dr. Lecha directed the assemblies to design mechanisms towards increasing internally generated funds and warned against malfeasance. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News.
The management of Kajibi Asato Senior High School has instituted what it calls Talent Day to inspire confidence, creativity and competition among students. The day will see competition among students where each class produces their best representative for the challenge. According to the assistant headmaster in charge of academic work in the school, the day is to identify potentials in students who may not necessarily be in the arts classes but are naturally gifted. He says prizes would be awarded to bring some competition among students. There's more in the following reports.
Most students are living and fulfilling the dreams and aspirations of their parents by what courses they choose to study at the senior high school level. Some students who are naturally endowed with the skill of drawing and other creative works are pursuing different courses that would not give them the urge to explore their latent God-given talent. It is for this reason that management and staff of KJB Asato Senior High School have set a day aside each semester for a class-based competition among students who may come out best as writers and best artists for recognition. Some students who took part in the competition have expressed their appreciation and satisfaction about the initiative.
I think it's a very good idea because this is an art competition. It's the students to bring out their abilities in order to encourage other students, and then it boosts the morale of all students in the school. Also, I think that this is an art competition. It's a very good opportunity for all students to bring out their talents. I urge the school authorities to continue this initiative so that we, the students, can come out with our best.
This is an art competition. We help the students to freely express themselves, learn to write essays, and it will also help them to be able to write a whole lot of essays, be it whether formal or informal. Also, the arts on the other side will help the student display their picture making talent, drawings that they know, and painting, which will help the student to also showcase their talent. And I would like to thank the management for taking such a decision to engage all the students in this competition.
The assistant headmaster for academic work, Sifas Adamvo, explains the essence of the initiative.
We don't want to say where parents will feel, look, I want you to go and do this, because this is what is best for you. Allow the child to explore, so that they don't feel boxed in an area that they are not even comfortable in. Allow them to explore based on the talents they have. Maybe you want them to go and do science, but when you go to the arts, that's where the child's strength or his potentials are. So why not give the child the opportunity to go into what will make it in life? We have a lot of students who may not be doing visual arts, but when it comes to drawing, they are even the best. So how do we get these students to let them know that, look, you can make it? Maybe you have not even chosen the right area you are supposed to be. So I agreed with my staff that, look, today let's get the best of each class. It was just nice to see what our students came out with. So the essence is to just bring out the best, the talents that they have, and see how best we can coach them as they move forward. We are going to do it on semester basis. Every semester we are going to have this. Next semester we are looking at going into the sciences, integrated science and mathematics, where we give them some topics to read. Then they come and question them to bring the best in them.
Peter Sanu for Joy News.
And that's it for the AM News. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Mapito CBD.
Well, thank you for staying with us. In case you just joined us, good morning to you. Time now for the news review on the AM show. We have our usual stack of papers and we'll be getting right through them. We'll be joined by Oliver Baka Vomawo, as we usually do on a Tuesday morning, as we delve into topical matters. I can see Oliver already. Oliver, good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Oliver?
Hello?
Can you hear me from this side, Oliver? If you
yes,
can.
there you go. I can hear you now.
Great. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. And,
pleasure.
We'll be getting into the papers, but maybe right before we do, Oliver, let's take a look at some matters that have really got me thinking in recent times. The first one has to do with something right down your alley, Oliver. It has to do with the law and its practice in Ghana. I'm sure you may have chanced upon this piece about judges and how they dress and all of that in Ghana. And recently what the Chief Justice has been saying in that respect, not just judges, but in the past, lawyers as well. So let me just quote what the Chief Justice says, and maybe you can react to that. So he concludes on the matter of dressing for judges. I reiterate that dressing in this manner, that is with all the frills, helps to preserve the decorum, seriousness, and formality of court proceedings, and the importance of the proper administration of justice. And the importance of the proper administration of justice. Hold it. He goes on to say, for this reason, judges and professional magistrates should also ensure that members of the bar who appear before the courts strictly comply with the dress standards to maintain the dignity of the court. I trust that I can count on your unalloyed cooperation. So I ask you, Oliver, mere vestiges of colonialism that we are clinging to, or is this indeed something we cannot do without, a sine qua non when it comes to the dispensation of justice? Your quick take.
First of all, let me just give this caveat. In former times, I have been very unrestrained in my comments on the Ghanaian judiciary and their, observance of what you call colonial etiquette. But it goes beyond just some being more to colonial etiquette in a sense. It's a how do you call it? A rehearsed practice of how do we make the law inaccessible? How do we make it strange to the populace of Ghanaians, and rather than remove all these vestiges and all these technical appearances that makes the law friendly, and people can find a place of comfort in making the law more accessible. But I'm giving this caveat particularly because I'm in front of the Chief Justice with regard to the petition for the removal of the Electoral Commission.
In other words, Oliver, you are merely telling me that, Charlie, where your finger is right now, you don't want it to get bitten, so you're going to season your words.
That there's a critique of the system. In that there's a critique of the system.
Right.
In that if an advocate pursuing a matter as important to national interest as this has a certain fear of the judicial repercussions of speaking truth to power, that should tell you about the state of our democracy.
So in other words, Oliver, you are afraid. You are basically saying that our system is so to speak, vindictive, that you are actually afraid that if you say something, you'll get bitten.
Absolutely correct. I am absolutely afraid of the repercussions that would happen in a matter like this, and that people's egos or whatever or not will be placed above the national interest in this matter. But I am disappointed in every regard that the law, we are not making the law much more accessible, that we are not even concerned about the extent to which there's inequities in our judicial administration, that the law is not friendly to everyday Ghanaians, but for consistently the judiciary's only concern and main concern and priority is about how do we police the skirts of Ghanaian female lawyers. What is the length of their skirts? Whether or not they are dressed in a particular way that is sexually appealing to judges. These are matters that are completely appalling. And I do not understand why there's so much interest in regulation of dress standards when nowhere else is this a matter of concern of how we administer justice. But again, it's really
the Chief Justice says to aid in the implementation of the proper administration of justice, they must dress well. Don't you? I mean, you must dress well to be able to administer justice properly.
Again, when he says dress well, it can get lost in translation for a lot of people. What they mean is the gown, the wig, and all of that. Not like you can be in a three-piece suit, or you can be in a cloth, and that's not dressing well as far as the court is concerned. You have to look in a particular way that they have legislated, down to what socks you can wear for your shoe. This is completely absurd, to be honest. But then again, this is Umofia. You can expect everything.
This is where Umofia. You never cease to crack me up, Oliver. All right, so the second matter I really want to get into with you before we start looking at the papers has to do with the latest Corruption Perception Index, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, which is the local chapter of Transparency International. Now, dated today, that release paints quite a picture. Basically, 180 countries, and where we are, it appears with our score of 43, we are not making too much progress. So we scored 43 out of a possible clean score of 100, and we're ranked 73rd in the world out of 180 countries. Someone would say, that's pretty good. But let's look at the dynamics. You would notice that we've actually stagnated. In the last 2 years, we've scored 43. Our best score came in 2014 when we scored 48. Since 2012 till now, we've been in the 40s. We've never hit 50, which is supposed to be the average that any country that is striving to deal with the issues of corruption, democracy, human rights would be aspiring to. And in fact, we've sat down for countries like Seychelles to take top spot. They scored 70, and they are the regional champions. There are many other countries, and we placed 9th. What do you make of this whole Corruption Perception Index? Even some people say, doesn't really point to it. You can't put your finger on it. This is just a perception. What do you think?
I mean, I think even if you can put a finger on something, there are still various different countries where persons perceive their systems to be more just. People perceive their system to be dealing with corruption better. Why is that? How is that possible for those countries where there's institutional distrust of governments across the world? It's not only peculiar to Ghana. But for some reason, in that institutional distrust, there are certain countries where citizens are able to look at their governments and say, as far as it comes to corruption, I think we are, 70, 80%. There has to be a difference there. Now, as far as we are stagnating, you know, I am unable to point to anything within the past 10 years that makes me convinced that we've taken a step that deals with corruption in a much more robust way.
Right.
I'm unable to point to anything. You know, it is, and the only thing that has happened in the past, in the past decade, was that we created the Office of the Special Prosecutor. But creation of offices is much like passage of laws. Even before the Office of the Prosecutor, we had about 6 agencies dealing with corruption. And so we think that the way in which we can cheat our way out of the system and create a sense of doing better around corruption is that we create a further bureaucracy, knowing that there's so many other institutions that exist. Obviously, the citizens are not going to feel it. Citizens are going to look at it and return back the verdict and say that, listen, you can do all these gymnastics, but the reality is that we know that Ghana is essentially very, very corrupt. And corruption can go in so many ways. It's not only financial. Let me give you an example. Last year, myself and a couple of others filed a police complaint regarding the funeral of Sir John, where high-level officials in this country participated in, the flouting of COVID-19 rules. Same conduct. I mean, even on a minuscule level, that is going to probably lead to the impeachment of Boris Johnson. And we filed this police complaint. And I had a number of, media interviews where people were asking me, is it realistic to expect that the police will do something about all these high-level officials? And I was saying to myself, in what world, in a democracy, where we promise equality before the law, would the question as to whether or not it is realistic for the police to take action be even on the table?
But that was before we had a certain Dr. Ekufu Dampare as IGP. Wouldn't you say that things have changed somewhat?
Institutionally, it cannot depend on one individual being appointed to give a sense of.
Right.
Maybe the police would act different. But yesterday we did a follow-up on that police complaint. A police complaint that the police signed for. They said they have lost the complaint.
They had lost it?
Yes. Now, if we live in a country where we send a petition to the presidency for the removal of the EC chair, and it comes back to us that pages from that petition are missing, whole police complaint documents are missing. We've been in this country where cocaine as evidence has been missing. These contribute to perceptions of corruption. Right. So it's not just financial, but how we administer justice itself lends to this idea that there are persons who are committed to corrupting the processes that are intended to make our democracy better. So that's the verdict is completely spot on. Perhaps I suppose a lot more people will be surprised that we even placed, what we placed. But the truth is, we haven't done anything that shows a commitment to dealing with the root problem.
Right. Very quickly on this, what do you think we ought to be doing to better our CPI? Transparency International proposes, let me see, is it 5 things we ought to be doing? But I'd like to find out from you. What do you think we should be doing to change our story? Maybe to even hit at least the average of 50. What do you think Ghana should be doing?
So in general terms, because I think that the Ghana Integrity Initiative is overly focused on the financial aspects of corruption, I think questions of integrity generally come down to the enforcement of law.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things which we have talked about consistently, that this belief that citizens ought to reform themselves to some high level of degree before things are well doesn't quite make sense. Right. People ought to have the fear of the law, that even when nobody is watching, perhaps the long arm of the law is going to get me. Because if not, there's no way in a country of 30 million people where about 90% of them have no basic fear that any repercussions are going to happen to them if they break the law. It will overwhelm our enforcement capacity. So there has to be some sense of, we have done the enforcement of the law so well that culturally it becomes ingrained in us that if I do fall far of the law is going to get you. In fact, in 80% of the time, the law doesn't get you, but it's the perception that the law would get me, that the long arm of the law would get me if I propose to sell a dilapidated building in Takrade for $7.5 million to GMPC. These things, we must have a certain fear of it. If not, we're always going to be back in this situation.
Right, and just to wrap, so the Transparency International also shares this. They are saying that what needs to be done, we need to enhance institutional checks on power, empower citizens to hold power to account, sanction the corrupt to serve as a deterrent, improve transparency and accountability in political party and campaign financing, crucial, and promote efficient public service delivery and anti-corruption through digitization. That is what they propose. Let's take a quick look at the daily graphic now. And I'm going to focus on the most crucial matters so we can get into them, Oliver. Apiate tragedy. Company that hauled explosives closed down. There's also Parliament resumes today. E-levy top on agenda. And Ghana Gas triples production. There's also the story about 10 dying in the Savelugu Wale highway accident. And 6-member car snatching gang busted in Tamale. But your quick take, very quick one on the Apiate incident, if you can do that in 30 seconds, so that we move to Parliament's resumption today and the whole bit about the e-levy. Your quick take from where you stand on the Apiate tragedy.
I think it's a completely sad situation that has happened. For me, it's again a reflection of some institutional disregard for Ghanaian lives in general. We've already seen a lot of misinformation being put out there by the Ghana Police Service. I'm a bit disappointed that cooler heads were not made to prevail and actual facts being investigated before they put in information out. But one of the appeal I've made to the legal community, and I'm speaking particularly to the legal community here, is that I'm hoping that 5 to 10 lawyers come together and form and try to get a class action going to seek some corporate responsibility for the actors involved. In other jurisdictions, lawyers are given to grant courses in the public interest. And it's very difficult in a space where so many people in this community will not be able to afford any sense of justice. I think this is where the Ghana Bar Association should be mobilizing resources to do it. Unfortunately, it has become moribund. And I'm really trusting that certain legal persons will be able to provide some support to them. That's what is most important to me.
Right. So on the bit about the e-levy, today Parliament resumes. Hopefully they are not going to be boxing over the e-levy, but we're back to that issue. And we've heard from different people saying different things. The minority has stated categorically that it's not going to support this. It's made it very clear. The majority is saying, the majority caucus is saying that it will pass no matter what. In fact, the majority leader says it's already been approved. So what are people, making noise about? We've heard from the CPP's chair, Nana Akosua from Poma, who says, well, an e-levy, this kind of levy, it's nothing new. And she thinks it's already happening because the telcos are charging 1% when you make these transactions, at least. So it's nothing new. It's just the 1.75% that she feels is too much. The threshold is too high. What do you think about this? And ahead of today's sitting in Parliament, what are you expecting to see?
Through the country, we protested the first time this came to light. We were in Parliament protesting this. And first of all, I think that there's a confusion that the CPP member talked about. There's a confusion between service charge and a tax. A service charge is the provision of services by telecos for the mobile money services or mobile money transactions where they're entitled to charge something for the service used.
Right.
This is different from the government coming in and saying that any money that is in your wallet, we are taking it. But secondly, I am suspicious about even the constitutionality of the proposed levy, because it is not taxing your income. It is simply going into your wallet and taking your money every time you move your money from the right side of your pocket to the left side of your pocket. And I think I don't know how that passes the constitutional tax of compulsory acquisition of property. It's a matter of being quite interested in testing in the court. And I do so with a bit of hesitation, because everybody I've spoken to says that we completely understand the argument and we think that is an excellent argument. We are not sure whether or not the Supreme Court will be inclined to accept the argument, obviously for historical reasons. Going into Parliament today, I think the conversation has to be broader than the majority and the minority. This is the NDC and the MPP. What is the overwhelming majority of Ghanaians saying? Now, I've seen that the government is proposing to go on town hall meetings across the country and speaking to Ghanaians and explaining the purpose of the tax. But conversations like this and consultations has to be two-way streets. You have to go in there expecting that the person will have a voice rather than Yes, we hear you. Oh, hey, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Heil Hitler. It has to be more than that, right? People are going to express dissenting views. And how do you incorporate that and propose to take that on board while you're actively passing it, trying to pass it in Parliament and even claiming that it's already been approved? So what you're doing that is explaining to them why you've taken the measure, rather than in fact consulting them as to whether or not this measure is appropriate and if so, even legal. I don't, to be honest, I mean, I've seen the NDC flip-flop on this matter on a number of times. I've seen the minority leader claim at certain instances that, yeah, we are inclined to quantum reduction. Then they come back and reverse course. The history hasn't been too good in terms of how the minority is able to hold up against them. But I think one of the things that is important, that at some point in this country, with all the things we complain about people being shy of participating in our democracy, is that 100,000 people came out onto the streets in Accra to protest VAT. Over 500,000 people in Kumasi to protest the VAT. Persons have to show their disinterest and disregard and why they do not want this tax. And I think that even the Rawlings administration, which we are accused of, well, the same dictatorial tendencies that we continue to see now, listened to the voices of the people and withdrew that tax measure for at least 3 years before the conversation was reintroduced at some point. And so my real appeal then is to the people of Ghana that the conversation really is not about the majority and the minority, but it's about us who, as some people have called this levy, a tutu-bottom levy, that our pockets they're after our pockets. And this is something that we must then, do something much more robust in showing our opposition to it.
Right. There's also the bit about, and of course, that will also play out in Parliament. That committee was set up, the legal committee of Parliament, to look at the LGBTQI bill. That's something else that people are looking forward to. But let's quickly go to the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. 2 quack doctors busted over fraud, illegal abortion. There is a PFAG pushes for implementation of benchmark discount policy reversal. 5 car snatchers arrested in Tamale, and Kusasi's Mampusi's conflict flares up, renewed clashes in Boku. Have you followed the Boku situation, Oliver? And the latest shooting, gunning down of a police officer and quite a number of people, a few of them losing their lives. It appears we are not properly addressing this chieftaincy turf war. Your take?
I follow the issue a bit, and I must give my condolences to the family of the police officer who's lost her life. I think it's really sad. One of the things that I've been surprised about is the lack of coverage of the Boku situation in the media generally. I'm not seeing reporters on the ground. In fact, I've gone through some of the comment sections announcing the death of the policewoman, and I saw so many residents of the area talk about why is the media not reporting the deaths on their side and the things that are happening on a day-to-day in their lives, and the only time they give coverage to anything is an incident like this that blows the situation out of proportion. But in fact, the abuses of citizens' rights in there is not being reported. And I don't know anything about it or the accuracy of these claims, but it'll be really interesting. I'm really surprised that we're not getting as much on the ground and 24-hour coverage of the situation and the volatility of the situation as it merits the national attention. And also whether or not there are excesses that our security forces, which are prone to excesses, are committing on the ground. And I think this is a conversation that we need to have holistically and honestly if we want that problem solved.
To be honest, I have seen some of those messages on social media as well. People saying that the media is not doing enough here. We're doing our best, correspondence and all of that to paint the picture. But I do agree with you. I've seen some of those on social media. And I believe all of these issues deserve, equal attention, if not more. The final newspaper, Fair Wages, urges cooler heads over ongoing strike by worker unions. Tekpe blames market uncertainties on e-levy benchmark values. Deadlock. And those are the major stories there. Of course, Malcolm is also has been donating to the Apiate victims' families. Let's do the daily guide now. Police woman, 3 others killed in Boku clashes. And that is Constable Regina Dede Anganu, the one I was just talking about. And then Apiate tragedy. I didn't cause explosion. That's according to the tricycle rider who says he was hit. He also landed where he did. The vehicle ran into him and all of that. And there's fiscal deficit widening. That's according to Seth Tekpe. Canada MP, Canada in quote, goes to Supreme Court again. The story is on page 3. And I'm talking about James. This is actually the opposition NDC's Member of Parliament for Asin North, James Jeche Kwesen. So that story in there as well. Let's look at the BNFT. And it says, benchmark policy puts 100,000 jobs at risk in rice industry, farmers warn. And the story says the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, that is the General Agricultural Workers Union, and the Rice Millers Association of Ghana have expressed disappointment in the government's decision to suspend implementing reversal of the benchmark policy discount, benchmark value discount policy. They cautioned that an estimated 100,000 persons who are directly engaged in the rice value chain activities stand a risk of losing their livelihoods if the benchmark discount policy reversal is not implemented as planned. So it's pretty interesting, isn't it, Oliver? We keep going back and forth on this matter. There are some, Guta together with others have said this is inimical to our import activities, to our service to Ghanaians, those in Abosuakai, Konkompe, and all of those places are complaining. AGI on the other end saying this is the way to go. Today we are hearing from these institutions, these groupings, that the benchmark policy puts 100,000 jobs at risk in the rice industry. How do you think we can bring some finality to this issue?
Before the government came into place, one of the things that I talked about was that taxation would not be just a revenue sourcing, a revenue raising measure, but that they would have an intrinsic policy purpose behind it, which is in terms of moving Ghana towards a less dependency on imports and towards more production. Unfortunately, the vast majority of things we consume in Ghana are still very much imported. And so our reliance on foreign imports has made this quite a bigger issue that puts the economy at risk in some regard.
But is it necessarily, and I agree with you, the rice importers, the local ones are saying, look, this is going to cost us, in different ways. But isn't necessarily the way to go? Is that the solution? Making the import caps higher so that maybe people who are importing are forced to pay more, they sell at higher rates, and then our local industry can also grow. Is that necessarily the way to go?
I mean, I think that there's a level of measure in this that I agree with, which is that one of the things we haven't done quite over the period is the protection of the domestic industry, the local industry, in as much as we're trying to force people into entrepreneurship. Recently, I don't know whether you saw the news about Frytol exiting the market, which is, for a lot of us who grew up, Frytol was the brand that we all was familiar with when it came to cooking oil. It shows you a regression in ability of businesses to survive in Ghana generally. And we have to be much more mindful of the extent to which we must go. And we must make no apologies to the extent we should go in trying to protect domestic industry. But when I say this, I mean that it doesn't stop at just raising how much premium we put on imports, but also what we are doing to help local industry sustain. If not, there are going to be increased rise in the prices of goods we consume, and then we're going to entrench poverty. We have to make sure that the capacity that we have built capacity for the local industry to be able to come in there and occupy the shortage that it will create in the market. And I'm not quite certain as to whether or not all these deliberations have sufficiently go into this. And I say this not as a means of criticizing government again, but just we are introducing, we are reversing, the president directed we reverse. When you think that this is a decision that cabinet would have thought through and have a robust basis for making a decision.
Right.
So those we will come back, we come back, kind of doesn't really inspire confidence. Okay. In any event, it's coming from the finance ministry, which primary focus has been on raising revenue for a budgetary shortfall and also being able to pay our debt. So you think that money is leading the decision rather than really protecting the industry as we are trying to sell the policy as.
Right. Two quick issues and we wrap the conversation. I just want your take on them together. So the first one has to do with COVID-19 vaccine cards being for sale. And it's interesting because this was even before I saw the Economy Times today. It was something I'd been discussing with a colleague here at work about the fact that people are supposedly paying for the cards, getting them, but they've not taken the jab. And it's a sad situation because some workers of the Ghana Health Service are supposedly cashing in through the sale of COVID-19 vaccine cards. The other one I want you to wrap on, Ghana is out of AFCON 2021, but your other country, Morocco, they are facing off with Malawi at 7 p.m. today. Are you throwing your weight behind Morocco now? So the vaccine card up for sale and then Morocco. Let's do this.
I remember I had a conversation with a friend of mine in Nigeria about this idea of the vaccine mandate. Now, I'm fully vaccinated, but I do not support a vaccine mandate. I think it goes against people's liberties to be forced into that situation. And she said to me, well, you can go ahead and do it, but I'll tell you what happened in Nigeria. What you're going to be demanding is proof of vaccination, right? Okay. Proof of vaccination everybody can get. People are just literally just going to buy it. It's going to create a sub-economy of corruption. And, we haven't even gotten there. We're already seeing this happen. Because you cannot treat vaccine hesitancy by forcing it down people's throats. You have to have an incentive framework for people to get vaccinated so that we can reach herd immunity, if that's even possible now. And so I'm not surprised that we're already seeing that sub-economy develop. We are not anticipating, the tendency in the system for people to, profit even in the terms of public health crisis.
And that also feeds into the corruption perception, doesn't it? But let's go on.
Yes.
On the issue of Morocco.
On the issue of Morocco, yes, I think I have to come back and find solace in Morocco now. I would have loved to do it with Nigeria. Unfortunately, they organized a Twitter space where they laughed at Ghana forever when we lost. And I'm grateful that Gary also returned the favor in that we did same to them when they lost. But I'm more disappointed that we drew Nigeria in the World Cup qualifier. It just means that both countries are not going. One of the two countries is not going to be at the World Cup, and that's really, really sad to me. But yeah, I think the proudest moment of the AFCON has been Comoros Island. They've been one of the revelations of the tournament. They played fantastically against Cameroon, despite the difficulties imposed by COVID-19. And I think this AFCON has generally been a joy to watch. And I'm looking for other teams, even like Gambia, and it's
Gambia
really
beating Guinea. Gambia actually beats Guinea. They are also debutants. And the Comoros lost to Cameroon by 1-2, but at least they dignified.
They did a good showing.
Oliver, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday morning.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. And that is how we wrap it up this morning when it comes to the news review. It's been pretty revealing. It just comes to mind how the Nigerians were blaming their President Buhari for the call to the team and how supposedly it jinxed the team. Interesting times. Up next, though, we have a lot more sporting action for you. Do stay.
What a way to exit the African Cup of Nations. And that was a stunner of a free kick there as Comoros lost 2-1 to Cameroon. 5 red cards already produced in the round of 16 of the African Cup of Nations. The opening game saw Gabon getting 1, and the second game had Alex Iwobi of Nigeria also been red carded. And as you saw in the game involving the Gambia and Guinea, 2 red cards were produced in that game, and Cameroon versus Comoros, another red card, 5 red cards. And tonight is Cape Verde versus Senegal, whilst Morocco will come up against Malawi in the other matches tonight in the African Cup of Nations. But as thousands were jubilating the goal that was scored by Chamanga as Comoros exited the African Cup of Nations, at least 8 people are reported to have been killed and dozens hurt in a crash outside African Cup of Nations match in Cameroon. Video footage showed football fans struggling to get access to the Paul Biya Stadium in the neighborhood of the capital, Yaoundé. 1 child is among the dead, according to Health Ministry report obtained by AFP news agency. A Yumbo quote shows people climbing over fencing in an elevated area outside the stadium, as well as gating that have been knocked down, and also captures an ambulance driving by. My colleague George Adejina was there and comes through with this report.
So the game between Cameroon and Comoros has ended, of course. Cameroon winning by 2-1, and obviously we're playing against Gambia in the quarterfinal of the Africa Cup of Nations 2021. But there's some bad news, I must say. Whilst we were in the stadium paying attention to the game, there was a stampede outside, according to the reports we have gathered. Just to try and put some perspective to all of this, I have Giovanni, who works with Sports Glitz here in Cameroon, who saw everything that happened. Unconfirmed reports indicate that about six people were feared dead. We're also hoping to get exact information on why they were not given the access to get in. Fans who wanted to get in were not given the access, and they overpowered the police, the security around, and then there was a stampede. Let me leave the story to Giovanni, who saw it happen before he got into the stadium. Giovanni, thank you very much, and thank you so much for joining and wanted to tell us about what you saw. What did you see then?
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all. It wasn't a bright picture at all. I still have it all over my mind. I mean, I was in a rush to get to the stadium because usually I wouldn't get late to the stadium. But today I got in when it was left just about an hour to the game. And on my way in, there was an unpleasant picture. I could see a man seated down. I could see blood, patches of blood on the ground, and I could see people being carried around by military trucks for further treatment. People really couldn't breathe well, but due to the fact that I was running late, I had to catch up with the game. Then before I went in, and everything that happened followed.
Yeah, I mean, trying to establish why fans would overpower the security, clearly because they were not allowed to get in.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've always said, this is a football country, and expect the stadium to be filled to capacity whenever the Lions are playing. That today was indifferent, and lots of fans, especially with the fact that we were through to the round of 16s. Lots of fans had tickets, and they just really wanted to make their way into the stadium. But with the security here, fans are given a popular site where they have to all get in. And the thing that happens is the popular side is always jam-packed. So there are always some cracks in areas where they would always strike their luck to get in one or two, So today it happened that they had to come through a gate, and the military was trying to stop them not from getting in, and they just overpowered the military. And that's how they got so many people injured. And I feared that someone could be dead, really, because when I was...
Actually, unconfirmed reports that indicate about 6 are feared dead. We're yet to put that in context. And the thing is that the Confederation of African Football, the organizer of the competition, have not said anything yet officially.
Yeah, we're waiting for an official statement from CAF. We are waiting for an official statement from the local organizing committee as well. And we just hope that nobody went though there was no loss of life in this grievous events that happened.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. Works for Sports Glitz here in Cameroon, giving us an idea of what happened whilst we were inside the stadium watching the game between Cameroon and the Comoros Islands. Yes, Cameroon are through to the quarterfinals, but we hope that there's not such bad news coming through. Hopefully, all those involved are fine, and we can continue with the great competition. George Addy Jr. from the Limbe Stadium, Yaoundé.
Now let's talk about something related to Ghana. And some football fans have said that Ghanaians should not compare the exit of the Super Eagles from the tournament to that of the Black Stars, because Ghana losing to Comoros was a humiliating outcome in that fixture. They've been speaking to my colleague Sergio Manucho.
Nigeria team were the ball different. You boy, how different I so boy. Man ko ka say Nigeria free mutie be gina so aka say we dey fala ye mistake Nigeria said ye Egypt Nigeria be say ye team we ngunu ampe place for mo am me boni e ka say ye design we mu kwa ko gina Nigeria team we ni dey say kama ye mo
enye ye kula kire say ansesa team no ni afa player for Franco dia Nigeria from be say o mu ho asabe say wa ha because Ghana say ne boy ye we ye bobo ye di agodo ya mobo we through can we yes san nkrofo no on ball last year mo share 3 yes e be form fala eni 3 nyame kro na ya dom ya nhebi na we mo sabe tena be jimoni say Nigeria for fala mu be su
enye we say Nigeria from be share mo na we
because me tea crampo draw na ma dwen say e betimi kwa yen san yen kan chom say okay ya dia ma monko anu be ye good a chen say o be gu yani mu ase because wo hwe team no ekuta yen no a Comoros adai enti mo bi enu no ngasa bia Nigeria fo afrim eti no e hwe fala
Ghana for the I say enu no ye ho ne yesre ye team kankan we wo betumi de ase Nigeria no hard luck o e to mu so hard luck Ghana ye team kankan we akoye ebusua team and now me ja blaster support 2015 and na me ja blaster support Ghana ye ni team me ye ndada ye ho ye ni team kankan we wo ko se Nigeria ona ko se na oto twem ordinary be gu ye so na twa be twa ye no ye behu na mapamu coach na ye di se coach na coach asa omo ye adwuma na nkasa wo ho ye mpam ho na mapamu coach mu de coach na anim na masa Nigeria ye ntumi on baako so on be say
Nigeria ye den on be say Ghana na ye Ghana Blaster no ye susme te chire ni hobium ti se nka ban betia na adum betia mo mu universities ka bi hobium over qualify na o the president and then Crawford selection no more de akọ ya so nipa akogu e ho say akọ support team no ye bo first man second match na film abra ye nyina yesu say kromo kani ase no abra ye nyina so ehia ska enti say Blaster be wi ni kwa na di Crawford bi akọ na Crawford be just business dia so Ghana de abra ni yankopon kro wo so nim say ho kire kromo de a Blaster and nya de be qualify na qualify china da ye mo mu dua sunsume da kire nyina ekọ o dey say sunsume Blaster chi na ekọ enti mo bia universities ka bia wom say de ko bobo qualify ko je cap ye nuru ba bia na ye qualify mpo.
And how do we get football fans to throw their weight behind the Black Stars? Well, the Executive Council of the Ghana Football Association will meet tomorrow and decide on the future of Milovan Rajvac. Well, there's a directive from the Ministry of Youth and Sports that he should be fired. The Ghana Football Association has approved it. They received his technical report yesterday. The Management Committee of the Black Stars will also present their report today. And the Executive Committee will meet tomorrow and probably release an official statement parting company with Milovan Rajvac. I'm Muftau Nabila Abdullah, and this has been AM Sports.
Basically, for me, the E-Levy, I know what I'm going to say. It's not going to be what most people want to hear. But E-Levy has come to stay. The digital cash is with us. But as to how much should be charged, is the discussion that must go on. But the fact that any government is going to use electronic way of collecting money from people or from its citizens in any payment or in any form, I hope becomes the future. The pricing is too much. 1.75 is just ridiculously high. Already the Momo, the telephony companies or whichever companies that own the payment platforms have been cheating us for years. The 1% that we pay for every movement of money should have been addressed years back. But for government not to have addressed that and expect that to add more, I believe that when they address that, they will be able to address the E-Levy. As for E-Levy, using the E-Levy method as a way of collecting taxes, I believe it's the future. I believe it's about the easiest way for them.
So we start with the first of our big stories, and it has to do with Parliament resuming, MPs sitting again, and the E-Levy. How is it going to turn out in Parliament today? We'll be giving you a breakdown of what the facts and the figures are so far. But our guests helping us for this discussion, who are joining me in the studio, Edward Bauer is Member of Parliament for Bongo. And of course, we have John Abua-Sani, the Member of Parliament for Umpohon. We also have Eric Amponsa, who is Eric Amponsa-Boateng, a tax consultant. Isaac Kofi joins me in the studio as we get into the nitty-gritty. Interesting times, isn't it? Yeah. We've been hearing so many things. The NDC, like Oliver Barker-Vormawor was saying this morning, seems to have vacillated a bit, you know, in terms of their stance. And I know, Honourable, he gave me the look. He'll be sharing his thoughts on that. In terms of what they were saying initially, then we heard from the minority leader, and now the stance is we don't want it. We've heard from different political parties as well sharing their own thoughts. But let's get into the 2022 budget. And let's look at the facts and the figures when it comes to the e-levy and what we can expect. Isaac, so what are you going to walk us through?
So we are going to focus today on our tax, revenue and grants, total revenue and grant. Then we look at the tax component as well. So for 2022, the projected total revenue and grant is estimated at 100.5 billion cedis, and then out of this we are hoping to get 80.2 billion from tax revenue. So 100.5 billion for total revenues and grants, and tax component 80.2 billion.
Right.
Now if you should break this down, looking at the tax revenue alone, we have taxes on income and property, which we are projecting to get an amount of 38.229 billion, cedis. Taxes on domestic goods and services, 36.02 billion, and international trade taxes, 9.03 billion, in 2022. Now, when we come to, let's focus on taxes on domestic goods and services. Taxes on domestic goods and services, because for taxes on income and property, it's a specific. International trade taxes specific, but taxes on domestic goods and services usually tries to capture everyone on board. So we have excise tax 2022. The estimated amounts we are hoping to get as revenue is 6.18 billion cedis. VAT, the biggest component, 14.53 billion. National health insurance levy, 3.27 billion. Get fund levy, 3.28 billion. Communication service tax, 651.75 million. And the controversial e-levy, 6.96 billion, almost 7 billion cedis in 2022. And then COVID-19 health levy, 1.14 billion in 2022, Ben. Now, from 2013 to 2020, the components of the taxes on domestic goods and services has been varying. From 2013 to 2018, we've had 4 consecutive components.
Right.
So we had the excise tax, VAT, communication tax, and then in 2019 we added a new one. 2020 was the same. 2021 we added another one, and 2022 we are adding the e-levies.
So now it's been incremental.
Exactly.
So to speak. Between 2013 and 2018, we've had some stability. In 2019, it shot up. It was maintained in 2020, and in 2021 and 2022, we appear to have increased them.
Yeah. So from
year on year, that is.
So from 5 in 2013, now we are having 7 components as far as taxes on domestic goods and services are concerned. Now let's break this down. So in 2013, so we're just having the excise tax, VAT, NHIL, and communication tax. This was maintained till 2018, and then in 2019 we introduced the Get Fund levy, making it 5 components.
Right.
And then 2020 was the same. 2021 we introduced the COVID-19 levy, making it 6. And 2022, we are introducing the e-levy. So from 4 components in 2013 to 7 components in 2022.
And that is dependent on whether the e-levy gets the nod.
Exactly. So these are, like projected figures. So from 4 to 7 in 2020. Now let's look at total revenue versus tax revenue. So the blue, trend line is the total revenue from 2013 to 2021. These figures are from the various budgets, and you have the red or the pink line being the tax, revenue from 2013 to 2021. Now you can see that from 2013 to 2022, the gap has been widening. You get it? So in 2013, we're hoping to collect an amount of 22.53 billion as total revenues and grants, and tax component was supposed to be 17.09 billion. 2014, 26.006 billion, tax component 20.42 billion. Now let's look at it in terms of percentage. Maybe we can understand it better that way. So in terms of percentages, the total revenues and grants we're collecting in 2013, 75.9% were supposed to be from taxes. And in 2014, there was an increase from 75.9% to 78.4%.
Right.
And in 2015, we maintained it, still 78.4%. Then in 2016, there was a decline from 78 to 75.9%. Now, from 2018, you could see that was the highest, where our total revenues and grants had, taxes alone comprising of 80.7%. Now, 2020 was the least with 73.4% as far as, comparing tax revenue and total revenue is concerned. So, in 2022, we projected to generate an amount of 100.5 billion, and then we are raising, almost 80.2 from tax, so making it 79.8% of the total revenues and grants we are collecting.
So our best year would then be what? 2018, where we seem to have
Absolutely.
in quite a bit in terms of the tax to revenue ratio.
Yeah.
Right.
So Ben, that's what we have. But you can actually have this pictorial. You can see that from 2015 to 2022, the gap has been widening as far as our total revenue versus tax revenue is concerned. Meaning, just like we had in terms of percentages, in 2018, that's when we had, the closest from 2016 to 2022, we were generating an amount of 49.4 billion, and 39.88 billion was supposed to come from tax revenues. So that's what we have at the moment.
So we have quite a bit of a discussion when it comes to taxes and the e-levy and the component, how it's going to factor into helping us get through the 2022 year in terms of the budget. And it's going to be a topical matter in Parliament today. Let's get to our other guest, Kofi. Thank you so much for bringing us the details. So as mentioned, Edward Bawa is Member of Parliament for Bongo. He joins us this morning. We also have John Abwasani, Member of Parliament for Umpoho. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well. I see both of you in white. Is it a sign of victory as you get to Parliament today? Are you aiming at seeing your side carry the day when it comes to the e-levy? I'll start with you, Honorable Bawa.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
I've not been here.
We've not encountered each other this year.
Yes. I think, to be very sincere, I just opened my wardrobe and that was the first stuff I saw.
Oh.
So there's no significance to it.
Okay.
That being said, I think that all of us have had a well-deserved rest during the festivities, and then I think both sides are well energized to come and then carry out the activities for which we were voted into office. So basically, in Parliament, and today, yes, we are going into Parliament. There are a lot of outstanding issues that need to be dealt with. There are a lot of private members' motions that were filed in the last sitting, but were admitted that we couldn't take them. For example, the issue of uncapping the GET fund, called the challenge with the GET fund office, seemed to suggest that because of this Capping and Realignment Act that was made, the challenge is that they do not have enough money to even pay outstanding obligations in terms of contractors and other things. So the issue of introducing a private member's motion to see how we can uncap that fund. You know that there's an outstanding issue on a motion to change the health minister over the smooth V issue. It's an outstanding issue that has to be dealt with. And so, and I know there's even a motion on, and that is even from both sides, to investigate the killings in the 2020 elections. So there are a number of...
so it appears there were quite a number of things that you're going to have to look at, especially as you resume.
Yes, and again, you introduced the issue of
LGBTQI
issue.
Your legal committee will get back on that. The sittings will resume, public sittings
will resume. So I think that our job is clearly cut out for us to look at. And then, in my opinion, e-levy is the least of all these concerns that...
It doesn't appear so. If you look at even what Bloomberg put out there in recent times and the reactions from the global finance community, they've been talking about the fact that the failure to roll out the e-levy from November, at least, to get clarity on it, has affected the economic fortunes of our country, especially as your budget has quite a component, over 6 billion Ghana cedis, tied to the e-levy. And without it, looking at the shocks our economy has had, especially on the back of COVID-19, it's going to be problematic. So I don't know about its being the least, because it is crucial, lest the administration wouldn't be pushing this hard.
I was looking at your figures, the figures that your colleague was showing on the screen.
Isaac, right.
Yes. If you look, so that assuming that all our revenues, we were able to get all our revenues, it's 100.5 billion. Am I right?
Right.
If you look at it, if you just take interest payments and amortization, that's about 46 billion.
Right.
If you take compensation for this year, that's 35.8 billion. If you take statutory earmark funds, like the GET Fund, the Road Fund, and then the DACF, that's the Disassembly's Common Fund, that alone is 31 billion. If you put that together, that's 113 billion.
Right.
So even before you even, and I'm assuming that e-levy of the 6.9 billion projection that has been captured in the budget is added to this 100.5 billion. Even if you take that from a start, you already have a deficit of about 12.5 billion to deal with, when you have not even looked at in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of our other things, in terms of goods and services. You've not looked at all those figures. So when somebody tells me that just 6.9 billion is that is the game changer, that cannot be true.
It may not be the game changer. It may not be the game changer, but the fact too is that you know, when it comes to our debt to GDP ratio, even the tax to revenue ratios, you know that where we have shortfalls, it can only be inimical to our economy, because moving forward, these are gaps that we're going to have to fill. We'll either come back with more taxes, more levies, or we'll have to borrow more. And you know what the impact of all of that would be on the ordinary Ghanaian and our economy. So you may see it as 7 billion is not chicken change. It is not, as far as our economy is concerned. We are looking at 100.5 billion.
Look, let's...
You know, in the year. That is almost what, 10% of our entire budget for the year.
Why are we always looking at the fact that anytime there's a shortfall, we're looking at increasing taxes, but we're not also looking at the other aspect of it? The Auditor General had indicated to us that...
Are you going to be telling me about the 12 billion?
The 12.5 billion.
Right.
Shiraj has said that on an annual basis, about $3 billion, if you take even an exchange rate of 6 to $1, it tells you about 18 billion cedis.
Right.
It's lost through corruption and other things in a year. Why are we always
interested? But that is not new. It's not something that is starting with this administration. Even during your administration, when you were in power, these same stories were painted.
But the figures, the magnitude with which we are dealing with now are not the same. And that's the point I'm just trying to make to you. And I'm saying that if we try to be a bit more efficient in the way we do things, if we try as much as possible to plug the holes within the what they call the public sector in terms of how leakages have been done, if we tend to see how we can cut down on our expenditure, look, I give you, just the Office of Government Machinery, that is the Flagstaff House and its agencies under that, there has been from 2021 to 2022 budget, there has been an increase of about almost over $1 billion that has been sent to that place. Is it the case at a time when you are introducing austerity, to say the least, you should be seen at the center of government to be seen to be a bit moderate in terms of how you expect.
To be tightening your own belt.
The belt. So I am just making the point that, you see, there are other ways we could look at it. And particularly, you see, the discourse within the e-levy argument, we are not being transparent, we are not being truthful to even the people who will be paying these fees.
When you say we,
I say we, as a country, and I for this, I am just trying to say, well, government and other things, because at the end of the day, the government is our government, isn't it?
Right.
We brought them into office. So that's why I'm using the word we. Why do I say so? They consistently indicate, and if you listen to the finance minister just the past few days he was talking about, they consistently talk about the fact that the e-levy, one of the things it's supposed to do is to create jobs. You know, they say job creation. These figures that I have mentioned, at where would we see job creation in this? After, when you even just your 4 items alone on your budget, this consumes all this money. Where are you going to create the jobs? Where are you getting the money to create those jobs? That's the first point. The second point that you realize is that, look, they consistently talk about the fact that, oh, our neighbors are doing it. I mean, you've heard those arguments. Our neighbors, what is the form of the taxes they use in terms of electronic transactions?
In Cameroon, they tried 0.2% and they kicked against
you see, which was starting on the 1st of January, 0.2% on the transaction fees. You take Kenya. Kenya is putting 10% on the the transaction fees, not the transaction value. So the 1% that MTN will charge you.
Then they take 10%
of it. They look at that. You look at Kenya, the same, Tanzania, the same, Zimbabwe. So even places where they charge on the transaction value, we do not have an example where they've gone beyond 0.5%.
Right.
And that is consistent with, for example, what is ISA.
But the reality is we must also stick with what is happening here, the reality of our situation.
What is our reality?
We are in dire straits.
We are in dire straits because of our own doings.
Okay.
You see, when you have situations where you are in serious, look, as a landlord, when you see that your finances in your family, it's not good. What do? You tend to look at measures. If there are some wasteful things that you do, maybe if you were used to going out to sit with friends and drink about 3 bottles of beer a day, you tell yourself that, look, now in a week I'll take a bottle, just because I want to cut down on that. Or maybe if you look at your expenditure.
So we are not doing that.
We are not looking at our own behavior.
Okay, all right.
We are not. We are not looking at our own behavior. So that's the point.
Let me quickly come to John on this bit, and thank you as well for joining the conversation. How crucial is the e-levy when it comes to the budget for 2022 and our economic life, basically? We've heard Edward say that it's not that crucial. You're looking at a budget of 100.5 billion, 6.9 billion is not going to be the game changer. Is he getting it wrong? And how crucial is this to economic life?
Thank you, Ben. Let me say a very good morning to your house and our Charlie's listeners who are listening to us or watching it at this moment. Ben,
right?
As the going say, every coin counts.
Right.
When it comes to economics practices, every coin counts. When I listen to my colleagues from the other side concerning this e-levy, every now and then they keep shifting the goalpost. If the e-levy is insignificant, as he claims, their entrenched position from day one about this e-levy, it bubbles my mind.
In other words, they are being hypocritical. You're pegging it at over 6 billion, not up to 7 billion, and they seem to be saying it's not going to make that much of an impact. But if you had asked for more, which would mean, let's say, 12 billion, let's assume 12 billion, they would be complaining even more. So they are being hypocritical.
That is my point. Because we were here. Sometimes when you try to make certain references of their own records, then they try to push it to the other side. We're here. 2015, if your production team can pray back, we have a record, a clip then the former President Mahama was trying to admonish Ghanaians to come to the terms that the country is in a state that our internal generation fund, that's our internal revenue mobilization, is nothing to talk about.
Right.
And so he was trying to preach to Ghanaians that we should brace ourselves to pay more tax, to make it up with the government revenue, to be able to do more projects. And that's the time that they introduced taxes on catalysis that farmers, even an essential tool like catalysis for farmers, to use to go to their farms. And you know the proper one, the condoms and all that. And how much was it? That value a year, the total tax on the condom and the catalysis, if it doesn't get to 2 billion, but it was an essential component of taxes that they were looking for to cushion the economy at that time.
Right.
And so if you rubbish a tax that is going to generate almost 7 billion as insignificant, then I don't know the kind of posture you are trying to paint at this time. Look, as he's saying, there is a survey, economic survey, within the sub-Saharan Africa, suggesting that tax to our GDP within our peers within West Africa is 16 to 18%. But Ghana, we are doing 12%. So if you are to go by their claim, then he should suggest to us that at this time we should look at how we can also adjust our tax to our GDP from the 12% to the 80% as our peers are having right now within the sub-Sahara. When it comes to governance, okay, it differs from country to country. It depends the peculiar situation that you have at a time. That determines what decisions that a government takes at a point to remedy the situation. We all sit here, we know our financial status as we sit here. Let me give you a little background. As from 92, in our Fourth Republic dispensation, from 92, when we have our former President Lawrence as the president of this nation, until 2001 that he handed over to former President Kufuor. We have, I think, Mr. Kwame Pepa being the finance minister, I think Dr. Kwesi Butchie at that time. Because of economic stress, they went to IMF with all kind of policy, physical, whatever. At the end of the day, when they handed over, we have our external debt, both internal and external debt, standing at 6.8 billion. And that is the time that Ghanaians came out with the term of pay. Then from President Kufuor even took us to HIPIC. And then all the foreign donors and the countries who were owning gave us some leeway and whatever to be able to restructure our economy. I don't know, they when President Kufuor was handed over to President Atta Mills. It has also ballooned to 7.8 billion. Between the space of President Mills and Mahama duration of 8 years, from 7.8, when we were leaving, they have ballooned our external debt to 120-something billion, almost 1,400 something percent. From 2017 to date, we have crossed over 300. We have done almost 300 to 400% value of it. It tells you there's something fundamental wrong with our economy.
But let's hold on. Let's go back to the data that you just mentioned. You're talking about our debt and how it has grown over the years.
Over the years.
I don't know whether I heard you right when you said that it had grown over 400% under former President Mills. Is that what you were saying?
No, from former President Atta Mills and Mahama together,
right,
went up to 1,400% because it was 120 something. It was 7.8 billion.
Right.
But when President Mahama handed over 2017, it has
7.8 billion what?
So you're starting from... Hold on.
Please.
So as of it was around 6 billion. You're saying that when Kufuor was leaving power, it was around 7.8 billion. That is what you're saying.
Yes,
and that by the time Mahama was handing over, it had hit 127, thereabouts.
Yeah.
That's I just want
to... No, hold on.
The currency. What is the currency?
We'll get into those details.
What the currency
so
means?
you're definitely speaking in cedis, right?
I'm speaking in cedis.
Right.
Yeah, in cedis, not dollars.
Right.
Yeah. Today, we are talking about over 300-something billion.
Right.
Good. So what I'm telling you is...
And you know what percentage that is, right?
Yeah, that's
almost...
almost...
from 127 to over 300 billion.
That is it. Almost 300.
Added over 130 billion Ghana cedis to that pool.
So, which is almost 200% value. Is that not it?
So you are looking at rate.
Oh, my brother.
Please let him land. No heckling.
I was here. I could have interjected those things.
John, go ahead.
So it tells you that as a nation, we are not self-sufficient in terms of internal generation fund. So year in, year out, anytime we read budget, we either have to go in for a loan to support our budget year in, year out, to be able to make up whatever we want to do. And wherever we go in for these loans, it's taxes that they tax their indigents to be able to do more projects, and even the reserve that they save is what they give us as component as a loan for us to do whatever we do. So as a nation, and as a government, and as a people, we should be truthful to ourselves that, look, until we come to the terms that our internal generation fund is not self-sufficient, and we need more revenue to do more development. As we sit here, look at our population size now. We are growing, but our revenue is differing. Okay, now we have a population of about 31 million, and then you have other aspects within Accra developing. Okay, people are moving to other new locations. They are looking for good roads. They are looking for water. They are looking for electricity extensions and all that. And all these things have to be done with money. Now you have a population of almost 35 million now. The 18 million that are in adult bracket that can pay tax, you have only 2.4 million people within the direct tax that you can tax to have some revenue.
But of course, we all know about the indirect taxes and how all of that feeds into the pool. It's not just direct taxes that you're using to fuel the machinery of government.
Oh, are you sure?
Yes.
The indirect taxes. I mean, when I go and purchase credits, everything we do has, indirect taxes.
How much do we get in terms of mobilization from the indirect sector?
So maybe it's an angle we ought to be looking at.
It's very insignificant.
It's not VAT is an indirect tax.
Oh, John, you know what? Let him.
It's for education.
Edward, let John land, and then you can come in with all your rebuttals and counter arguments.
So there's a need to get more from that sector. And this yield levy is one of the vehicles that will help us for us to mobilize some revenue from the indirect sector. It's not a bad tax. We have listened extensively from the public, from the opinion leaders, from the civil society and whatever. Now, as we talk, look at the yield levy. With your kind permission, look at the electronic, what seems to bring in the taxable component that will drive the vehicle of the yield levy is mobile money transfer between accounts on the same electronic money issuer. The second one is mobile money transfer from an account on the one to a recipient on another. The third one is transfer from bank account to mobile money account. The fourth one is transfer from mobile money account to bank account. The fifth one is bank transfer on a digital platform or application which originate from a bank account belonging to individuals to another individual. Now look at the exemption ones. Now these exemption ones, cumulative transfer of 100 per day, maybe
100 CDs, Ghana CDs.
Yeah, per day, made by the same person is exempted. Transfer between account owned by the same person is exempted. Transfer for...
Did you say up to 100 CDs is exempted? Because from what we've been told, 100 and above, I mean,
that's
it's
cumulative.
affected.
That's cumulative. That's cumulative transfers of 100 CDs per day made by the same person is exempted. Then we have the transfer between accounts owned by the same person is also exempted. Transfer for the payment of taxes, fees, charges on the Ghana Gulf platform is also exempted. Electronic clearing of checks is also exempted. Specific merchant payment, that is payment to commercial establishment registered with the GRA for income tax and VAT purposes is also exempted. Now transfer between principal, master agent, and agent account is also exempted. So we have streamlined these things and come up with the details of the components that are taxed under the yield levy. And this one, we trying to get Ghanaians, the civil society, everybody to come to board with us for us to look at the yield levy in its totality, for us to accept it, because it's a vehicle, the yield levy, the purpose of it, in finality, is a vehicle to generate some revenue to support our infrastructure development. And that's where we are. We all need infrastructure. This fix the country demo and slogan and all are running around. Talking about building schools, hospitals, roads, and unemployment, it all have to do with money. And it is ourselves that have to generate the money to meet all these needs, to make Ghana a better place to live in. The entrenched position of my colleagues from the other side, they know that this levy of 6.77 billion a year is going to cushion the government to do developmental projects.
Are you suggesting that they just want you to suffer? That's why they're doing this?
All this back and forth on this levy is not about frustrating the government and making sure the government doesn't succeed on its policies and agenda. Why should it be a problem?
Okay, hold it right there. Hold it just a second, John. So just to clarify, what the finance minister has told us as far as the e-levy, it will affect mobile money transfers between accounts on the same electronic money issuer. Yeah. It will affect mobile money transfers from an account on one EMI to a recipient on another EMI. Yeah. It will affect transfers from bank accounts to mobile money accounts.
Yeah, that is it.
Transfer from mobile money accounts to bank accounts. So both ways, this way and that way, back and forth. Yeah. It will affect bank transfers on a digital platform or application which originates from a bank account belonging to an individual to another individual. So this is wide. I mean, if you break it down, you do the segregation, it is wide. But just because you made mention of that point when it comes to national budget over the years, let me just run this by you.
Okay.
Looking at our debt situation in terms of our GDP. Yeah. If you look at it, since we are talking about the facts and the figures and 78%. What pertained from 2000, okay. Let's look at the last two elections, 2016. Let's look at that year. Okay. 2016, the rate, that is our debt to GDP ratio, stood at 55.94%. 2017, 56.98%. 2018, 62%. You look at 2019, 62.59%. In 2020, it shot up to 78.92%. 2020, we were looking at 83.54%.
So I don't know why they went for that.
And in 2022, the estimates, global economics, is that we'll hit 84.87%. In fact, it's projected that by 2026, we'll be hitting 86.45%. So when you look at the ratio, it's only been incremental. 2016, we're at around 50%. Now we are looking at almost 90%. How can that be healthy?
My brother, you see this. You are aware, Ben, that the 2019, as you have stated there, the 2020, the year 2020, globally, we're all hit with this pandemic. And as a result, everything escalated. Every economy in the world was on its knees. And this escalated to this volume of percentage at that time. You know what happened?
Okay.
The percentage, like the sums of money we spent dealing with COVID-19, some of which even we media people are still trying to wrap our minds around. I mean, to be fair, when it comes to PPE, when it comes to other things that we did, and the sort of gargantuan sums that were attached to them,
then, 50 plus billion. At that period,
it was pretty interesting, wasn't it?
But at that period, you know, the government suspended a lot of things, paying electricity, supplying water, giving food. A lot of things went to cushion the situation at that time. And it all have to do with money. Okay, so there were some accumulated debt that came with this decisions that government made at that time to make sure that we take care of ourselves. As we are saying, the PPE, the provisions of some of the medical materials that was provided across the country to safeguard our health and all that, all came with money. So it was out of the vacuum that nothing happened and with these things escalated as our normal life is.
So just to wrap, you're saying that without the e-levy, if it doesn't pass, you're going to have a very rough time running government, financing, you know, the activities or seeing through government business in 2022. That is what you're basically saying.
Oh, well,
just clarify very briefly on that.
Well, straightforward. It's a vehicle that we need to ensure some revenue to support our current situation.
No, just clarify. Without the e-levy, can you still
without the e-levy,
government and ensure that things go the way you want?
Yeah, without the e-levy, we will still survive. But as a policy and as a government, we think the e-levy is a way that can help us to mobilize funds to support
Okay,
our way
John,
forward.
thank you. Then it means it's not crucial. I mean, if you can survive without it, then it's not crucial. Then maybe you shouldn't be putting Ghanaians through all of this. But let me come to you, Edward. Just your quick reactions before we go online and interact with our tax expert for his take on the matter. I know you have a few reactions.
Yeah, so and I'm happy. You see, first, your last question that you're asking, will the country survive without the e-levy, the receipts from the e-levy? His answer was in the affirmative. That suggests that it is, to use the words of the Ashantis, there's a way I brought.
A nuisance?
Yes, it's just sheer wickedness towards Ghanaians. And I'll explain to you why. Look, if you look at the people who are going to be hit seriously by this, are the underserved. You know that because when, for example, you go to open an account in a bank, because of these requirements of identities, they say, where do you stay, your address, and those things. They ask for minimum balance that you must have to open an account. Because of all these factors, a lot of people actually do not go into a traditional traditional banks. So most of them now prefer to handle their money in their mobile wallet. These are the people who are basically going to be hit by this tax. That's the first thing. Two, the basic principle of taxation is that you tax incomes, whether they are investment incomes or they are, what do you call it, you even just in terms of your salary, or profits. That's why you tax. That is the basic principle of taxation. In this particular one, it is the transaction value itself that is being taxed. So you see, in terms of just the basic definition, so for example, and I cited that example here, and I'll cite it here again. Assuming the two of us, we go to the nearest restaurant and we go to eat. They bring our bill. Let's say they say 100 Ghana cedis each, maybe for all of us. I'm just giving maybe 200 Ghana cedis. And then in that 200 Ghana cedis, all the various taxes would have been there. The VAT, everything would have been included in that. Right. Then you choose an option to pay with cash, 200 Ghana cedis, you pay.
Right.
And I choose a digital option. I am charged 1.5 and 75 again on that 200 after I've paid my taxes.
Right.
So it means that it is even punitive in trying to, even you people who decide to opt for what they call the digital e-transactions. And this is the same government led by your poster boy in the electronic space. I'm talking of the vice president, who talks about the whole idea of trying to create a cashless economy.
Right.
Because it has its own benefits. Then you discourage people in this area. That is another area that you look at and it is funny. But you see, when you talk about the quantums that you have even borrowed, Ghanaians can be excited if at the end of the day, so what did you even use the money for?
Right.
You took this money. Because we are talking about, you are moving from around 120 billion to over 300, almost 350 thereabout billion Ghana cedis. Now, so it tells you that you have borrowed, you are almost close to 200-something billion that you have borrowed. Tell us, just the borrowing, even before you talk about the other monies you have gotten in other areas, tell us what is it that you can point to and say, we've done this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that. We can't see anything. Rather, what you tell us are just the slogans that are going around. Agenda 111. My brother, do you know something? In 2020, the amount of money that was released for the Agenda 111, you know, it started in 2021.
Right.
Was just 34 million Ghana cedis. As we speak now, we do not even know how these hospitals are going, what is the design, what are these, how much is the unit cost, and what have you. You talk about those things. So you realize that in terms of direct and concrete things that we are doing, apart from consumption, all that we've used this money for is trophy.
Is what?
Trophy. We've just been eating. It's consumption. Consumption. We cannot point to certain things. You know, sometimes I give you a very typical example. You had a situation where, under the NDC, you had, for example, the Atuabo gas plant. That cost us about $1 billion. But what it did was that it saved us in terms of importation of gas from Nigeria and other places and other fuel, this and that, in terms of money on an annual basis of about $500 million.
Right.
You understand? So it means that if Atuebo gas plant is working very well. Atuebo gas plant should be able to pay for even the amount of money we use in doing that.
So the point is, you don't see those projects that eventually will give us value moving on. You don't see some of those projects.
All we're doing
and we seem to be paying more, in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's the point.
Right.
But you see, the other issue that I think that we should be looking at very carefully in all this, and me, I consistently stated that nobody is under the illusion that this country is not under any serious economic stress. We are all in it. But anytime you are in it, what you do is that you must trigger in a behavioral change. You must trigger in that. We are not seeing that. Even in these times that we are so stressed up in terms of financial thing, you have a government say contemplating buying a presidential jet. We have a government that
but let's be clear, that presidential jet, according to what we've been told, even if the purchase goes through, it's not something that is even going to be effected within this tenure, even till the end of
Why should you even contemplate it now?
Because there is the need for it, but what government is telling us.
If George Weah can sit in the one we have and move from point A to point B.
Let's not
No, I'm just making a point.
Digress into that.
No, I'm not digressing. It is actually an issue. Why would we, that as this, you now have a situation where a president can then be looking at a presidential jet, renting renting presidential jet at about $14,000 or £14,000 per hour. At the time that we have these challenges, how on earth can the government be contemplating putting? Look, I sit in parliament with him. He should tell me, but I can give him my own experience. My own experience is that I don't feel uncomfortable seated in the seat that I have been provided for in parliament. Why are we contemplating putting up another chamber?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. We'll get to it. I have a few messages too that are coming in, some interesting ones. But let's also go online via Zoom and interact with Eric Amponsa-Boateng, a tax consultant. Mr. Amponsa-Boateng, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation. Can you hear me, sir? If you've not unmuted, please do that so we can hear what you are saying in reply. Can you hear me, Mr. Amponsa-Boateng? All right, so we'll get to him shortly. I don't know which one of you attended the Swedro Senior High School. Which one of you? Is there any of you? Okay, so someone sent a message in that respect. I thought one of you had actually done so. But this one says, if you don't want to pay e-levy, then don't do Momo. And that's the simple point. Others are also suggesting that this is just going to create a nuisance for all of us getting it. Just coming back.
No, the text the gentleman put there. See, in as much as it looks a bit cynical in terms of the way it came out.
Right.
But one of the effects that we are going to have, and it is...
And I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, you see, because I'm using even the Uganda case as an example.
Right.
In Uganda, when they even introduced initially the 1%, it was first 1% on the transaction before they moved it to 0.5. When they introduced just 1%, in 1 month, in terms of mobile money transaction, it had gone down by 24%.
Right.
In 1 month.
In a month.
In a month.
I mean, here we've had our own issues where people have spoken about even the loaning system. Hold on, John. See, the loan systems and how, there are soft loans
that you can take.
Electronic transactions. And how some of them have come out to say that once we go that way, we're going to run out of business.
Yes, yes. You remember I think the founder, the one who
came out. That's exactly what I'm referencing.
Yes, he came out and said those things. So what you are then doing is that we've been preaching financial inclusion. We've been preaching financial inclusion over the years. What you effectively will be doing is that even though you are just looking at, out of the total 500 billion the government has looked at over a period, that this is the money that's circulating within the mobile money space,
right?
That you want to take a chunk of it. What you are not making Ghanaians know is that it's cascading effect on other lives. So when you are making a decision, it is not a point decision that you make that, I've seen this and I'm taking 6.5 billion out of that value. But you are looking at, when you take the 6.5 billion, what is the effect on other behavioral things? What is the effect on, for example, my grandmother who knows that if I want to put my mobile money in my wallet, and transfer it and use it to buy something, what I'll then do is that I'll keep it under my bed and then work with it. It changes the behavior of the person.
Right.
You understand?
And of course, John, when you have fewer people transacting, when you have fewer people doing the sort of things that you want to do electronically, it's also going to impact how much the system is going to get. You may get your 6.9 billion at the end of the period, but then what is going to be the ripple effect on the general population when it comes to the transactions, on the telcos themselves, and how much they are making, which would also involve their tax payments to you. So broadly speaking, like Edward is saying, this could have negative effects.
I don't subscribe to that, but then
what exactly don't you subscribe to? You don't subscribe to the fact that what I am saying could happen, or you don't subscribe to the fact that it will happen?
I'm saying that
or it could happen.
The reason I'm saying I don't subscribe to that, I'm saying that in reflection that this year levy, before it was introduced, and as I speak to you today, there is a technical team, okay, that have handled this. Through its analysis and whatever, have met the telcos, have met all the stakeholders, deliberate in totality and all that. And so with your suggestion, if there's that to come by or to reflect in the further analysis, I believe they should have known and come out with some alternative that would not reflect what you are saying. That's why I'm saying that I don't subscribe in totality to what you are saying, because I know the technical team that have gone around meeting the stakeholders on meetings, day, night, and all that. There's a lot that have gone into this. It's not just out of the broom that the government decided to throw.
So you feel it's foolproof?
That is it. So
nothing could go wrong?
Oh, when it comes to human projects and implementation, we always don't have 100% assurance until it kickstarts. There might be some fraud, there might be some challenges that as we go along the line, we then look at it and see how we can amend them, to streamline them, to get a proper a policy or a bill which will stand the test of time. Even government in, government out, like what we have, the VAT, the National Health Insurance and all that. That is what we intend doing with this. So what we need is the faith and trust of the civil society and Ghanaians in general to give us opportunity to put it in trial and see what we get out of it.
Okay, so trial, it's interesting because it reminds me of our VAT days and what happened. I'm sure you remember Kumi Preko, CMA Preko, VMA Preko. Eventually, we adopted VAT, but that initial stage was very tough.
I'm not done. I'm not done.
You have a minute more. Just wrap on this. Let's.
You see, in conclusion with Bawa's statement, you heard him at a point, the tail end of it, saying that why we are in Parliament, the sitting situation in Parliament is not comfortable. Why are we not looking at?
No, he actually said the reverse. He said it was very comfortable. Is that not what you said, Edward?
Yeah, I said what? I said that I'm comfortable. I said I'm going. So why will government be contemplating putting another chamber? That's the point I made.
But has that come to the forefront in our deliberation at this?
Then go and read the budget.
I'm saying, no, has it come to the forefront at this time?
When is it forefront?
No, in discussion.
Where?
So your problem is that
the fact that we are not discussing it here.
This is not a pivotal matter, so we shouldn't be discussing it. But I mean, we are looking at 2022 holistically, the budget stage. But I get your point. You see, so point well made.
Where I have a problem is, you see, it appears today, my brothers on the other side has become the apostles of the vulnerable of the society today. It makes everything look as if today every Ghanaian is poor, in need, and so any government policy and implementation, they are looking at it, oh, this thing, Ghanaians are poor, Ghanaians are in need, Ghanaians cannot do this. If we peddle this kind of information in the minds of Ghanaians, accepting that there's no need of paying tax in whatever we do in our life, we are not doing ourselves good.
I think we're settled on that. Do we have Eric Amponsa Boateng? Good. Mr. Amponsa Boateng, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother.
It's a pleasure
and
having you.
Good morning to your viewers and listeners.
Right. Edward, just hold your horses. I know you have reactions. I'll come to you shortly. But let me start from the standpoint of debt to GDP ratio as it stands now, and how that is impacting some of the things we're doing, like the e-levy. When you look at our economic situation in 2022 as a tax consultant, What do you see? What are weaknesses going into this year? And how do you feel we should be addressing them?
Thank you. First, I would say that, yes, because as an economy, we borrowed so much to the extent that the debt to GDP ratio is hovering around 78%. And so we really do not have any other option than to be able to raise revenue domestically. You agree with me that since 2013, various forms of taxes have been introduced. And along the line, we had the GET fund coming in. And then in 2021, for example, we had the COVID list. In 2022, the government deemed it fit to bring in the yield levy. And I think that we need to engage the stakeholders. Because as a tax consultant, if you really want to achieve your target, then there must be full tax compliance. And therefore, if you are introducing a new law, I think that the best thing to do is to engage the stakeholders and then educate them. And then we can now start from there. Now, because of the fact that we really don't have a challenge, we have a challenge, raising revenue. And I'm saying so because there are so many loopholes in the revenue mobilization system. But I'm also happy that with the digitalization, at least a lot of these loopholes have been plugged. And now, we look at what we expect for the year 2020. We are looking at about 100.5 billion, while we are expecting to raise 80.5 or so. So we should ask ourselves, how do we fund the difference? Since time immemorial, Ghana has always run a deficit budget. And you would find that we always have to go back and borrow, then our economy is not going to grow. So, about the e-levy, it is not a tax. There is a difference between a levy and a tax, even though the bottom line may be the same. Because when it comes to income, we apply the taxes on 3 types of income: employment, investment, and then business income. So the question that anybody would ask is that, regarding the e-levy, most of these areas will you place it? Okay, that is the reason why it is a levy. Now, I think that already the government is doing so well to widen the tax. Okay, and that is why, for example, just a few months ago, and it is still been ongoing, they brought on board the interest of the waiver and the penalty. In the past, we had Operation Darkness. We also had the tax amnesty sometime in 2019. But I would want to say that let's ask ourselves, the e-levy, is it something that we wanted? If without the e-levy, would we support the budget for 2022? If not, then it means that the e-levy has to come on board. My little issue.
Could you go over that point? That if we don't have the e-levy, what? I missed the transition there.
Oh, okay. What
Please go over that.
saying is that if we do not have the e-levy on board, will the government be able to support its budget for 2022? That's the question that we should be asking ourselves, because we expect the levy to raise 6,963 million Ghana cedis. And so the question is that if we are not able to bring on board the e-levy, will government be able to function as it expects in the year 2022?
What do you think? I have in the studio the Member of Parliament for Mpoho, Honorable Sani, and he says it's not crucial. I mean, it will soften the blow for them when it comes to their economy, but it's not to say that without it, they cannot run the economy. What's your reaction?
In my view, we need the e-levy. We need the e-levy because you would find that at least has been done, and it's been found that a lot of people who are in the informal sector use these means to do their business. And so I would say that yes, we did the e-levy. However, my little thought is that I use it a lot, especially the Momo. Now, my salary, before it goes to the, the employee tax has been withheld and paid to the GRE. And I'm able to withdraw money from my account, that is my bank account, directly to my phone. And that's what I use in paying my kids' school fees, medical bills. If I have people working for me at my site, my DSTV and all that. So if you tell me that after government has had the employee, the tax, and I'm now sending money, let's say, to my mom in the village, and you're telling me that if I send more than 100 Ghana, I should pay 1.7% of it. I think that it's on the high side. And the other issue is that then you're also applying the tax twice, because already my salary has been exposed to tax. And so why should you tax the money, that is the amount that I'm spending? I have said that, yes, why don't you rather tax the platform for which you are using to send the money? Because at the moment, when you want to send, let's say, 100, the telco, they charge you 1% for the use of that platform to send the money. But you will also observe that if you want to send 100 cedis, the moment you send it, before the money leaves your phone, another 1 cedi has gone off. So you want to send 100 cedis to somebody, you actually pay 102. And last week, I'm happy that the telcos have agreed that they are going to reduce the amount. And I think that is where government has to look at and then see if we can reduce the rate. Probably I should think that starting with about 0.75 will be okay.
0.75 will be okay. Right.
Yes,
because the reality is, you're talking about how, and maybe I'll run by you how you feel this is going to impact electronic transactions. Because if you are thinking of, let's say you are subscribed to DSTV and you are paying over 240, I know that is one of the components, the compact.
Yes.
Over 240, it means it will hit you. If you're going to pay your electricity bill and it's over 100 cedis and you're going to pay with Momo, it's going to hit you. So these are all realities. So when you say 0.7, did you say 0.7%?
I said 0.75.
0.75. So we can take the one off and leave 0.75.
Yes, it means that we are taking off the 1%.
Do you think this is not going to impact, like the member of parliament for Bongo is saying? Do you think this is not going to impact the number of people who are actually willing to transact electronically, and that is also not going to impact how much in the end we're going to be making from this entire avenue?
Yes, I did mention earlier on that if you bring aboard a new tax, whether you are going to be able to achieve whatever target that you want to achieve will largely depend on tax compliance. And you agree with me, when most of these the merchants learn about the e-levy, some of them even thought that it was going to take effect from 1st of July. Some people went to withdraw their money from their Momo and kept those monies at home. And so, personally, if the rate of tax is low to begin with, most people are not going to shy away from the use of the Momo. And as more people get on board to use it, then at the end of the day, whatever revenue that you expect, you'll be able to actually on board in this instance when you're widening the tax net.
My very final bit to you for now, I just want you to just tell me this very quickly. When you look at the trajectory from 2013 till now, between 2013 and 2018, we had the same component of levies from excise values, VAT, NHIL, and the communications tax.
The Get Fund, yes.
Then in 2019, we added the Get Fund, making it 5 components. Yes. We stuck to that. Then we added the COVID-19 health levy. last year, making it 6, and now we're thinking of an e-levy, making it 7. Aren't we going too heavy on these levies and on the financial impact on the ordinary Ghanaian? What do you think?
What I would say is that, yes, there's a need to bring on board the e-levy. But then, if we're able to raise that, then I think that at the end of the day, we'll be able to achieve whatever target that we've set for ourselves as a nation. We could even be looking at other forms of taxes which we can bring on board. Let's just give an example. You know, the vehicle income tax, okay? It is for the commercial drivers or those who do the commercial business. Why don't we, private people, also pay? Private, as in me, I mean those who work in the formal sector. Because in my case, I pay my taxes, my employer actually be told to pay. And so if it has to do with a sticker that I need to get on my car, after the tax, all I have to do is to issue the stickers to the employers, they give them to their employees. So that those private people who are not in the formal sector will also be able to contribute in terms of the vehicle income tax. And I think that will probably swell up whatever target for revenue that we expect to get.
Right. Do hold for us for now. Hold your horses, Mr. Boateng, and let's come into the studio. Now, for you, Edward, I know you have your few reactions, but I want to find out, and many Ghanaians have been very dissatisfied with the approach of the minority caucus in Parliament. And it has to do with the fact that they feel you are shifting the goalposts. You are not sticking to one thing. Initially, you say, we are completely against the e-levy. Then we hear from your minority leader suggesting that you have met and you are amenable to the e-levy at a certain percentage, 1%. Then you come back and say you totally don't want this. You are sticking with ordinary Ghanaians. John alluded to it earlier. What is the position of the NDC? No e-levy, or is it e-levy at a certain percentage? Clarify for us.
So I'll address that immediately. But just because he says something, I just want to in terms of when he talks about the vehicle income tax thing that he was talking about, he should address his mind to the fact that government has decided as part of the 2022 budget, if you look at all governmental fees and charges, increased by 15%. So what it then means is that if I were to go for example, roadworthiness at the DVLA, there has been an increase of 15% on that. Indeed, if you look at the document that contains the fees and charges in Ghana, the fees and charges, governmental fees and charges, about 20,000 of them, different ones. And you have a 15% increment across board. So it is also another huge source of them getting the monies that they intend getting. I just wanted to just draw his attention.
That's fine.
Now to the position of the minority. We have been very clear in our minds.
Have you?
Yes, very, very clear in our minds. Formally, the moment the budget was read, we issued a statement and we gave certain conditions under which we felt that the budget we would be able to work with government.
Right.
One of them had to do with the e-levy, where we said it was a no-no. If you recall, that statement that was signed by the minority leader then. The second one was on the floor of the House. When Haruna Iddrisu got up, when he was making the position of the minority on the floor of the House, indicated that it was a no-no. The third one was when Mutaka signed yet another statement indicating that it was a no-no. You understand? Now, I know that people
you recall the time when the same minority leader spoke about the fact that you had met you would accede to it at 1%.
I know where you're talking. You're talking about the telecos. When he made the Chamber of Telecos, when he made that statement, it was based, he said, he was talking about tolerable one, because you recall that even before that statement, we had even indicated in one of our discussions that, look, assuming that we are being unreasonable, we're talking about the minority, we're being unreasonable, ISA had indicated that anything above 0.5% was going to be punitive. That was what they had said, that anything above 0.5% on the transaction value was going to be punitive. So let's even assume that we're being unreasonable. Then the position of where government was something that could not even be entertained. He had indicated then on the plane that, look, after talking to, what do you call it, what's the name? The Minister of State for Finance, after talking to him, he had come to the conclusion that, look, even based on, if you were to take what he himself said, then still the 1.75 was not something you could work with. Based on even just what the finance, Minister of State in charge of finance, indicated. If that's the case, even the 1.75 was not a good, at least from what he had said, then maybe somewhere around 1% could have been something. So he was basing his judgment on what the minister had told him as a minority leader. But remember that the minority leader is a leader of the minority group in parliament. The decision of the caucus is what is final. And we have communicated the decision of the caucus on 3 different occasions. 2 by press releases and 1 on the floor of the House. And they are all consistent with the fact that it's a no, no, no.
I'll tell you for a fact that that assertion, I mean, when he communicated, whether with the telcos or otherwise, and he spoke, he sounded very much as though he were conveying the wishes of your minority caucus. And I am not the only one who has thought this way. People in media houses, ordinary Ghanaians. So I feel then that then the communication was poor.
So the point I'm just making,
as a caucus,
you see, I do not fault you or other media houses who made an interpretation of it based on, because I'm not good at reading sentiments and emotions that go along with words.
Sentiments and emotions?
That go along with words to know that from this the person was as if he was conveying. I am telling you what has been formally conveyed. Okay. And I said that what has been formally conveyed on a letterhead of minority caucus have been 2 different ones that have been on the fact that we have issued a statement saying that we need is a 000.
So as of today, just to clarify, as of today, when you meet in Parliament, what is the stance of the NDC?
If we meet in Parliament today, the stance of the 137 members of Parliament of NDC in Parliament as we speak would reject e-levy in all its forms, shapes, and is anything about it.
So 0%, nothing, no e-levy.
No e-levy.
You've had some support from the likes of Akosua Frimpong, the CPP's chairperson, who has said that, well, the e-levy is happening anyway. She talks about the 1% that the telcos are already charging, and she says that's a levy in itself. So we need it, but she talks about the component, and she doesn't agree with 1.75. She feels it should be lower. But moving forward in Parliament today, how are you going to get this albatross from your necks? Because it appears the NDC is saying it's a no-no. You've just heard that now. You have the same number of members of Parliament, your own majority leader, your own deputy speaker in Parliament, the first deputy speaker, Joe Osei-Owusu, has been saying in recent times that they can't rely on Speaker Bagbin, and that if he disappears, it would only mean that one of them has to sit in the chair, and then the 137 game starts being played again.
So it's an unfair.
No, I'm not asking.
No, I'm saying to say Speaker Bagbin will disappear will be an unfair thing. Because there have been occasions
where... They just say they can't rely on him.
Bawa, allow me also to talk.
No, I'm not talking about you. You are not talking. I was talking to him. I was not talking to
him. He was bringing me into the picture to respond.
Speaker Bagbin is not here.
Time, before you realize, it's just 1 minute, and I can't respond to all this.
Disappears. It is only fair that I draw your attention to the fact that...
You see, these are all tactics just to consume my time to respond to all these things.
Look, I can give you the rest and see whether you can convince Ghanaians. Talk to them.
John, please go ahead with your points. Just make it very brief in a minute so we move on to something else.
You see, the position of my brothers of the other side. So when Ghanaians and society are saying that we should go by consensus and cooperation, talking to them to understand why, whatever. Right. This is a posture of them in the House. It becomes very difficult.
Have you been listening to the majority leader?
Please, you think we have not tried our best as a majority group to come to consensus with the minority? We have tried everything. It is the no attitude that has brought us to this very point. Okay, and so...
Is the minority, just to clarify, Edward, please hold on, is the minority being unreasonable?
That's a better word.
They are being unreasonable.
That's a better word. Because, you see, this is not the first time tax has been introduced in this country. In their era, they introduced a lot of taxes. Though there was some resistance from our side. But the posture of them today, compared to ours, is unreasonable.
Okay.
Okay, so I will stand here.
Parliament now, my brother. You are busy.
My brother, this is my time. This is my
you have
time,
finished
please.
with that.
I haven't finished.
You've been speaking all this while. You have not been able to convince Ghanaians.
Don't heckle him. Let him just rap. So the thrust of what you're saying is what, John? The thrust of what you're saying is what?
The crack I'm saying is that Ghanaians should come with us, come along with us. We meant well.
Right.
We meant well with Ghanaians, and the development of this country is on the heart of the president.
Okay.
We want revenue to meet some of our targets.
Let's move on to something else that affects you. You are allowing Edward to get under your skin.
I can heckle him. What he's doing, I can do same. Won't have any meaningful conversation.
Let's look at another dimension.
Anytime he's raising points, I'm coming. Anytime he's raising any point, I sit quietly, listen, and allow the viewers to listen to him to make some input.
Hold on.
Anytime I start mine, you interject. And it's not fair.
So here's something I'm not going to allow him to interject on. You are familiar with the latest corruption perception index. Corruption perception index. Have you seen it? Have you seen that report?
Not yet.
Okay, so let me walk you through a few of the things that come up. It's a pool of 180 countries. And over the years, our performances, when you look at from 2012, we've always been in the 40s. We've never hit 50. I think our best performing year was 2014, when we hit 48. But when you look at the latest index, which is on your screen now, you would notice that we have not fared pretty well. Between 2020 and 2021, our score remained same, 43. So there's been no growth in there. But out of the pool of 180 countries, Ghana ranked 73rd. And our score remains 43. This means we failed to make any inroads in the last you would say 10 years, in the last decade. From a high of 48, we started slipping down, and now we are in very familiar territory. When you look at Africa, the Seychelles is at the top with 70 points. And in fact, that is very good compared to the fact that the countries at the very top are scoring around 88 and thereabouts. So it means Seychelles has done very well. Cabo Verde, or Cape Verde, is at 58 points. And we have Botswana, which has, in years back, used to fare very poorly. They've done very well coming up. Now they are at 55. Rwanda is also in there, another country that we sometimes talk of, 54. All these countries are before us. We are in 9th at 43, and we're rubbing shoulders with the likes of Senegal and Benin. At the very bottom, you have the likes of Somalia with 13 and South Sudan with a score of 11. Let me start with you.
Can you help me? The previous survey, what was our position?
So we scored 43.
And
I think the position, we can easily check.
On the position, which one?
No, so he's talking about the global ranking.
Okay, so for the 2020.
So my producers will quickly check.
Because I'm not
75th. And now we are 73rd. We are 73rd now from 75th.
I'm not able to address myself with this.
But we'll cross-check to clarify. But what is your reaction? It doesn't appear we're doing well as far as the corruption perception index is concerned. And again, that feeds into how we raise revenue and how much we raise.
Well, thank you very much. This particular survey, this corruption perception, I've not addressed myself with it over the years, but it's a new thing that you're into. But I think looking at the statistics on the table, there's a need for us to do more and position ourselves in the eyes of the global world and as a nation as well. If the current position is not auguring well, then we need to do more. Perception goes a long way with whatever you do as a person, as a nation. It might not be the reality, but it also has some effect on whatever you try doing. So as a country, we'll have to try to bring ourselves up to address with the reality.
What do you think about some of the solutions that Transparency International proposes? What needs to be done? They talk, for example, about enhancing institutional checks on power.
Yeah.
And they talk about public oversight bodies, including anti-corruption agencies and the Supreme Audit Institution, operating fully independent from the executive as their mandates stipulate. This is an area where we've had a lot of trouble. I mean,
Yeah,
even
but
if
we
you
have-
want to look at the Auditor General's reports and some of the things that are said and how there is practically no action on the back of them, and I'm not singling this administration, I'm speaking generally. They talk about empowering citizens to hold power to account. They talk about sanctioning the corrupt to serve as a deterrent, something we've not seen. We don't usually see. Both of you are from different parties. The sanctioning of the corrupt, I don't know what happens to that, but we like the talk and we don't walk it. So how do you feel we can feed
Yeah,
into
but you
these
see,
suggestions?
Ben, we have institutions mandated to do all this. We have example like Yoko, the police CID department, and other institutions that are empowered to take this on board, investigate, and prosecute them. Over the years, it's been something else that it have to be another topic to discuss. But I think, as you said, the whip has to start so that it deters some people from doing what they keep doing, so that we can get some sanity in society. As you are saying, when people are foul by the law and they are punished, it serves as a deterrent to others, not to venture to whatever others are doing. And so I won't take any word from your mouth, but I will say the institutions that have been empowered, but constitutionally empowered to do these check and balances on our institutions and society should be up and doing to help us going forward.
Okay, so I would run some of those suggestions by you very briefly, because there are two of them that feed directly into this conversation. But I want you to look at the general outlook, the corruption perception index, how we fared over the last decade, how we are faring now, and what you make of it, Edward.
Thank you very much. I just looked at your, I looked at the chart that you put there. From 2012 to 2020 or 2021, you realize that basically we've been struggling, apart from, you indicated, apart from 2015, where we went above the figure, we've always gone below the 50 mark. You had indicated, I'm looking at that. But it is also interesting to look, if you look at the figures, and I think my site is okay. If you look at the figures as we have them down, the worst performing time of John Mahama, which was in 2016, is the best performing of Nanado in terms of corruption, in terms of the figures. Because if you look at it, so if you look at it, that is exactly because the worst mark that John Mahama got was the 2016 one, which was 43, and the best that this government has gotten is the 2020 and 2020, which is 43. In terms of even scores, in terms of ranking, you realize that we have been performing badly from 2017 onwards. But there are factors to that. And I say this because, you see, when my brother gets up to talk, he will say NDC is corrupt. If I get up to talk, I will say NPP is corrupt. CPI is independent of both of us. I don't know if you're getting the point. Right. And it is what Ghanaians, the perception of Ghanaians on us.
So the bottom line is that either one of your administrations has not done well enough. We've not even hit the average of 50. That's a good point. But for the sake of time,
you can't use the same brush on us.
No, the point is that
can you give us 2009? Can you give us 2009 to 12?
That's not what the
do you have 2009 to 12?
Is it 2 or what? Oh, that is even worse. In fact,
I do have 2009 to 12.
Yes. Look, I'm coming. But you are talking about some specific recommendations.
Edward, in your final submission, we have to move on. Your final submission, I just want you to look at these 2 points. Improve transparency and accountability in political party and campaign financing, and promote efficient public service delivery and anti-corruption through digitization. How can you sum that up in maybe some 1 minute?
So you see, the first, you see, in fact, the recommendations go, if you look at the 2020 and look at the 2021, the recommendations have been very clear. In terms of, and I want to make it, I don't want to zero myself into this, in terms of making public sector become more transparent in terms of how we deal with things, is that, what do you call it? If you look at the 2021, the main thing that they spoke about had to do with, even in terms of in the crisis period, how we're transparent in terms of the expenditure of our covert funds was raised as one of the main issues. 2, if you look at the reason why Ghana Revenue Authority, and I'm talking the digitization issue, Ghana Revenue Authority has been able to exceed in terms of its, tax targets, because if you look at the 2021, they are telling us that we exceeded by about $200 million. 200 million Ghana cedis, because it was about 50, even though the target of 57 billion, we did about 57.2 8.2 billion Ghana cedis in terms of that. And it is all attributable to the fact that these days people sit in the human being to human being contact has been reduced. And so people go to the banks, they pay them this, they scan it through the platform, and the tax and the receipt is brought. So there's a reduction in terms of the human contact. So digitization basically becomes a very key thing. But again, because remember, this has to do with perception. When you have anti-corruption institutions themselves either underfunded or their leaders are being hounded around, then you have a problem, because you know the Melovo's experience, where he was chased out of office.
We'll get into that at some other time.
Yeah, just because he decided to do his work as an auditor general. If you have situations like this, obviously the record cannot be.
Well, this is all we can do on this today. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. Edward Bauer, Member of Parliament for Bongo, and we have John Abwat-Sani, Member of Parliament as well for Mpohon. We'll see how the e-levy pans out in Parliament today. We also want to say a big thank you to the tax analyst who joined us, Mr. Amponsa Boateng. Thank you so much for joining the conversation as well. This is how we wrap it up on the AM show today. My name is Benjamin Akapo. Check out more stories on myjoyonline.com.